Today we're going to be talking about the connection between the creator and the created. If you're new here, welcome to Heart of a Halfling, where we talk about Lord of the Rings and do some Lord of the Ring things. So let's get started. In reading Tolkien's work, there is something that I've noticed that is repeated from the beginning of the Silmarillion all the way through the trilogy. And that is the deep connection between the creator and what has been created. And really what got me started thinking about this is Sauron and the One Ring. And I saw a post where somebody was essentially equating it to like the Harry Potter little Horcrux. And how, Sauron didn't have a body or whatever and was just an eye. And so that got me thinking, because it's like, well, that's not true. That's how it is in the movies, but not the books. In the books, he is a fully formed person. He's called the Necromancer in the Hobbit books. And he does have a form. And he's very powerful. And even if Sauron doesn't have the ring, he was still fully capable of taking over all of Middle-earth. The only other person who could have maybe taken him down is Gandalf, and he would have probably needed the help of other Maiar. It wouldn't have just been a one-on-one thing. And so the only way to defeat Sauron was to destroy the ring, but not because Sauron didn't have a body, but rather he had imbued so much himself into the ring, and therefore it needed to be destroyed to completely destroy him. So this got me thinking. When we go back and look at Feanor, he makes a comment once the two trees of Valinor have been destroyed, and the Valar are asking for the Silmarils in hopes of maybe using the Silmarils to bring the trees back. He tells them no. Because if he has to give them up, then he'll die. Like, that's a deep part of him. And Aule supports this idea and completely understands. And I think that's because, one, that's what Aule does. He creates. He creates for the sake of creating. But also because of the dwarves, right? He creates these dwarves, and then Eru is like, what are you doing? And Aule understands that he didn't have a right to make the dwarves, but he says that he made them in order for other beings to enjoy the creations of Eru. And Eru, again, also being a creator, understands this concept of needing to create and says, well, I didn't really give the okay for this, so they have to wait until after the firstborn, but they can still be alive, and I will give them life. And so Aule understands this idea, and he was totally like understanding the difficulty that he was like, I will destroy them, but he's like crying in this moment of trying to destroy them when Eru steps in and says, no, I'll give them life. So Aule totally understands this idea of creating something and it being so much a part of you that it hurts for it to be taken away from you. And so then I go back a little further and we look at Eru. Eru created everything. And all of the Valar are just parts of his thoughts, right? They're all a part of him as well, which explains why Aule has this deep understanding of creation. But it also explains Sauron, because Sauron was also a creator. He also wanted to make things, but he got hooked up with Morgoth and it just went downhill from there. But even Morgoth was someone who wanted to create but just couldn't do it, and he just kept destroying out of his own selfish ego, just evilness, I guess. His own villainy got in his way. So moving on, we can look at Yavanna next. She makes the two trees of Valinor, and when they're destroyed, she mourns over them. Now, she doesn't die, obviously, but there's a mourning and a grief behind it. And she has just a glimmer of hope for the Silmarils, right? But that brings us back to Feanor. So then Feanor, in his, I don't know, in his own mind and selfish ways, decides he's going to go to the Teleri and ask for their ships. And what do they say? No, we can't give you the ships. They're a part of us. Like, as much as the Silmarils being taken away from you hurts you, the ships being taken from us would hurt us. And so they fight over it. They fight to defend what's theirs, what they have created. The connection between the creator and created is so strong that we have these characters that are willing to fight and die to protect them and save them. But all of these are objects of some form of enjoyment, right? Aule creates the dwarves to have other beings enjoy Eru's creation. Yavanna makes the trees to bring light to Valinor. Feanor makes the Silmarils to see if he can. They become hallowed, and now it's a bit of a vanity issue, but it was still for the sake of creating. You have the Teleri building the ships because of Ose and Unanet, because of their love for them. But then later we get Eol, who creates Anglicel, which will later become Girthing. And this sword is a weapon. It's a sword. It's not meant to be just enjoyed, but its being of existence is either a form of protection or a form of revenge or defense. It is a weapon in of itself of malice. And Eol puts his own malice and hatred into the sword. And what does he hate? Men. This is part of his issue. He doesn't like that men have come in. He has this whole thing with Thingol and not putting a bigger fight up. He's upset with all of this. And the person who ends up with Anglicel is a man. And he ends up dying by it. And so we see the malice being put into Anglicel and the purpose behind what has been created. It's not just an object to be seen, but an object to be wielded and used to hurt others. And then we get Sauron and the One Ring. And what's his purpose? To control, to conquer, to have more power. And so again, he's putting all of his malice and hatred into it. And because he's put so much into this one thing, we finally see the fulfillment sort of Feanor's statement that if something is taken from them, he would die. And in Sauron's case, the ring was taken, and while he didn't die, he became in a weaker state. But when the ring was destroyed, Sauron was destroyed. And we can get into the details of even that destruction, where Sauron isn't completely destroyed because he's immortal, but he doesn't have a physical form and can't have one anymore because he put so much of himself into this object. So, okay. So what does all this mean? What do we do with this? Well, Tolkien himself is an artist. He has put so much time and effort into his work. He had this love for language, and so created a language, and then told himself, I want to have a world to put this language in. And he creates this massive, expansive, full world that has a beginning, a middle, an end, has heroes and villains that are very well fleshed out, where you can see their flaws and see their worthiness all in the same time. He's created so much. And while Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings, all of it is not an analogy, one-to-one analogy, there are still his life experiences put into his work. One that I think any female who's into Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, is going to maybe be drawn to is Luthien. He based Luthien off of his wife. And how beautiful is that? We can look at the creation of Arda, and you can see influences from his Christianity, but you also see influences of his enjoyment of other world culture. There's some Norse mythology sprinkled in there, some Greek mythology sprinkled in there. You can see where he's taken all of these things that he likes and puts it in there. His understanding of the world and morality all gets put into this place. And that includes this deep connection between an artist and his art. Tolkien put so much of himself into this work and into the intention behind it and what he wanted others to feel when they read his work. He put so much of himself into this. And I love that this mirrored effect that's happening here of Tolkien being an artist, putting so much into his work, and then in his work creating artists that are putting so much of themselves into their work. And I just think that's so cool. I think that's just a really neat idea. And I love that he does it so effortlessly, so beautifully, where you just kind of read it and you understand it, you get it. But then when you take that kind of step back, you're like, whoa, this is like Tolkien talking about himself, talking about it, just that mirror effect. And it's cool, and I love it. And I like, too, that he includes the intentions behind what's being made and what effect that takes on the person who created it. And, yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting to take a deeper look at this whole concept of the creator and the created, and how Tolkien just put so much of himself into his work so that all of us can enjoy it. But even in a more smaller sense, he wrote The Hobbit for his kids, right? He wrote Beren and Luthien for his wife. And I just think that's beautiful. And I think it's beautiful and amazing that we all get to enjoy that and read it and enjoy the art of the artist. So there you go. There are my Thursday thoughts for you guys today. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed week. I hope whatever you guys create or take part in, that you put, all of yourself into it, all the good parts of yourself, no malice or hatred, but just enjoy creating for the sake of creating. And of course, I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed week, and may your homes be filled with food and cheer. Bye.